Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to take a look at shortwave radio. What is it and how do you get the best out of it, and can you just use an ordinary portable radio? Okay, here in front we have an example of a normal, fairly ordinary portable radio. This is a sort of mid-priced radio. You get even cheaper radios than this that can do most of the things this radio can do. Right, let's start at the beginning. What is on shortwave radio? Well, there's a lot on shortwave radio, and where does shortwave radio start and where does it end? It starts at about roughly 1.8 megahertz and goes up to 30 megahertz. Okay, why is it called shortwave? You get long wave, medium wave, or AM as it's commonly called, and shortwave. The reason it's called shortwave is due to the wavelength. Underneath here you can see a chart, just a rough chart, showing the actual wavelengths. So that's a long wave, so the distance between the peaks here and there, the measurement of that in meters is the wavelength. So a long wave, a length would be something like 340 meters. That would get you down in the, I'm not sure the exact frequency, around about 200. I know the long wave runs from 100 up to 500, somewhere in that region. And so that would certainly be the reason why it's called a long wave. Short wave, also the frequency in the long wave, you can see that because the distances between these two are far, it's going to be a low frequency, not many. The frequency is measured in the number of passes of the peaks in a second. So the short waves, they're closer together, the peaks, therefore the wavelength is shorter, and then the frequency will be higher. So they're the inverse of one another. When the wavelength is long, then the frequency is low. When the wavelength is short, then the frequency is higher. So that's basically the definition behind it. And the formula, if you're interested in wavelength, is lambda over the speed of light. Lambda equals the speed of light divided by the frequency. Here's an example. For instance, 25 meters, 25 meter band, approximately it would be 11.991 megahertz. So that's exactly 25 meters. Now, it's called a band because it's not exactly 25 meters. As we know, the international broadcast bands, as you can see on the chart here, 25 meters, they run from 11,600 to 12,100. So that's why it's called a band. And you can see all the meter bands here. In the older radios, they had the meter bands. You had a radio with either 9 or 8 or 10, or some of the really fancy radios, like the Grundig radios and the TransWorld radios. They had most of these. They had a drum that rotates so you could pick it up. But nowadays, with a digital frequency readout, the radios just give a number in frequency. Some of them have a button that you can press that scrolls through some of these bands. They won't have all of them on, but these are the meter bands. And some of the older radios had buttons that you press, which takes you directly to the dial reading. Here's an older type radio. You can sort of see what I'm talking about here on this radio here. I don't know how clear it is, but if you look close up here on the thing, you might be able to see there 49 meters at 6 megahertz, and you scroll down there's 60 meters, around about 5 megahertz, 75 meters, upper 3s to 4, the 90 meter band, and so we go down 120 meter band, or was it 130 meter band, 2.5. Okay, there won't be much happening there. Most of the listening that one does, especially during the daylight, will be more up here in the 19 meter band, which is around about 15, and the 25 meter band. But anyway, we're just sidetracking now, showing you what the older radios, which are quite nice. So you want to find out, what can I listen to? Well, you must listen at the right time of day to hear the stations, because it's no good listening during the daylight hours if you're listening on the wrong frequency. This is not coming out as well as I hoped it would. I'll post this in my community section and take a picture of it and post it there. This gives you the frequencies that you can listen to during the day, at night time, and in the evening, and it also divides it up into summer, spring and fall, and winter. So not only the time of day, but also the season affects more or less the coverage of the band. So this is a pretty good guide. But a rough guide is normally during the daytime you want to be above 10 megahertz, probably above 11 megahertz, and at night time below 10 megahertz. So 10 megahertz and below nighttime, you get good propagation, good signals coming in, and during the day it's better above 10 megahertz. So right now you say, fine, that's all very well, but I want to list. It's now 11 o'clock in the morning. What can I listen to? Well, there's a solution to that. Over here, this is the Global Radio Guide, published by Gail van Horn, put together by Gail van Horn, and this is available on Amazon. I think it's about $10 for the digital copy, the PDF, which is probably the best to have, because you can search on that. And in there, it has listed by a time what's available, what stations are on at 11 o'clock. So you can go in there, you can plug in the time on your computer or on your tablet, and it'll give you all the stations that you possibly can hear. Not to say that you will be able to hear them, but that because again you need to look at that chart that I showed you there to make sure what time of day it is. So if it's daytime, then it's going to be the stations in the 15 megahertz and the 17 megahertz, and that are you going to pick up. Okay, coming back to the international broadcast bands again, as we know, they're in meter bands. So that's why we started at the beginning. We mentioned the relationship between meters and frequency. As I said, the older radios always referred to the bands in meters. The dials were marked in frequency, but they had, as I showed you on that older Telefunken radio of mine, they showed the meter bands were shown there, or you had a button that took you to it. So that's where the meter section, where the meters come into play on shortwave. Other books that are available for shortwave, this is an older book. There have been later editions of this, a complete shortwave listener's handbook. I don't know when they last published it, but this was a very good book. In fact, that chart that I showed you came out of that book, and I've never seen it anywhere else. And then the other standard, this is a very old copy, naturally, shows that I don't keep up to date with this one, because where I live it's just too expensive to bring it out here, is the World Radio and TV Handbook. That is really the international standard. Unfortunately, it's only available as a hard copy. Printed copy, you don't get a PDF of it, but it's probably this is only for the die-hard enthusiasts. If you're not die-hard enthusiast, if you're just starting out with radio, that other one that I showed you, the Global Radio Guide by Gail van Horn, is perfectly adequate for $10. That's what I get, so I find that it does all that I need. There are also other online, fairly useful online guides that can help you to identify a station, and you're listening to something, you hear something on a particular frequency, you want to know what it is, it's in a foreign language, you can plug it in and it'll come up with it. I can't think of the exact name, there's shortwave, I'll put it down in my link down below. There are two available that you can put onto your tablet or your smartphone, and they're very good. You can plug in the frequency. One's called shortwave listening or shortwave something. Shortwave info, that's right, shortwave info. And the other one is a similar sort of thing, but that other one, the second one, covers medium wave and utility stations. Right, now that we've covered the broadcast bands and the broadcast stations, in between the broadcast bands and the broadcast stations, there's radio amateurs that you can pick up on the 80, 40, 20, 15, and 10, and the so-called walk bands, plus aircraft, maritime, military. These are so-called utility stations. Then you've got the weather and time stations, as well as weather facts, nav techs, and a whole lot of other strange digital modes. There you really better off having a SDR, software defined, one of these dongle radios you plug into a computer, because you can then decode it using your computer. But I think most people buy a shortwave radio and their interest is going to be listening to broadcast bands, and then basic shortwave radios that you get usually are quite sensitive and do quite a good job. If you really think you're going to be interested in radio, it's probably better to spend a bit more money than the very cheaper $20 ones, and to spend about $45, and you can get other radios that are more sensitive and better. There's one called R-108. The name is unpronounceable, something like a Shoidon or something like that. And then they also sell it, I think, as a Radiwow R-108, which is a very good radio. It doesn't have, it can't pick up hams and things. That doesn't have single sideband and CW and that. But for most people, they, as I said, if you listen to broadcast station, that's more than adequate. And there are quite a few of the other radios, I just can't think of the names offhand, that are available for about $20 that are also pretty good. One's the V112, just can't think of the name. It has a couple of names. I'll probably put something in the notes down below if I remember. Okay, that's quite a lot of waffle from me, and I probably went all over through the trees and through the woods to get there, but it's certainly a very fascinating hobby. And I'm a licensed radio amateur, but I much prefer shortwave, because licensed radio amateur, you've got to have somebody to talk to. And living down here at the bottom end of the world, it's a long distance to find anybody except somebody locally, and the local hams are not very active, so there's virtually no one to talk to. So shortwave radio is your friend. You can switch it on, and there's always something there. It will cheer you up. Music stations, obviously you've got medium wave as well, and FM as well, but shortwave is more exciting. It's like fishing. That's why when you get an interesting station, you call it a catch, because you catch it with your antenna. And one last thing while I think of it, all these shortwave portables have a whip antenna. They're usually designed to work very well with that antenna. They're very sensitive, the modern portables, shortwave portables, especially some of the DSP chip ones. And the older analog ones, like this Texan one, is a phase lock loop analog. It's not a DSP radio. All they require to boost the signal a bit is a simple wire type antenna like this. This is probably about 15 meters long, or maybe less than that. Not even 15 meters. What am I talking about? It's probably about 4 meters, about 15 feet. 4.5, 5 meters, about 15 feet, say, long. And that all you got to do is in this radio, it has an external antenna, so you can connect the connector here to the external antenna port, or you can simply, some of them have a clip similar to this on the end rather than that, and you can clip it onto your antenna. If it does come with this, then you just have a crocodile clip, double-ended crocodile clip onto here, and crocodile clip onto this top part of the antenna here. You don't have to pull it out, you can just clip it on there. And that will give you, and try and put it up onto a pelmet or your top vent window and clip it in there or something like it, so it's a bit higher up. So standing away from the radio and up as high as you can get it, and towards a window. Also, if you place your radio closer to a window, it'll improve the signal quite a lot. Okay, that's all the waffle from me for now. So thanks for being with me. Goodbye.